I think her decision just to right away say, oh, call for abuse or say like, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and find out this is abuse. She had her mind already made. She wanted just to take this child away from these parents.
Well, just the fact that you knew as an attorney, not as a doctor, that there was conditions because you've been involved in cases where there's this condition where your bones are very brittle.
Yeah.
And she didn't even consider that that was a possibility. She goes straight to child abuse. Perhaps she should have her license revoked. I feel like it's sort of like anything else. If you're a doctor, I mean, you know of the regular conditions, but you also know that there's these rare conditions. And just doctors, most of them that I know are very scientific thinking. They look for logical conclusions. They check the charts. All you would have had to do is see that she was bruised coming out of the womb. Perhaps there's some underlying condition there. That's because obviously we could rule out child abuse from that point. I mean, what are they're not punching her from inside the room. There's no way that's happening. You could have saw bruises on the womb, I'm assuming. I'm just going to assume that it was ruled out when they gave birth, that there was no abuse that had occurred, yet there's bruises here. And now, just weeks later, there's this other thing, but Dr. Shelley Smith comes in, oh, no, that's definitely a bruise, and I'm proving it, and I'm taking your child from you. And it feels like, here's what I feel. Shelley Smith strikes me as one of these people that was very idealistic in life, that she rose to some level of prominence in her profession to such a degree that Child Protective Services relies solely on her, and she's the head of that department, where what she has to say is gold. And attorneys and judges bend at the sound of her voice because she's the doctor and she's the one that she relies upon. And so she's no longer has this natural barrier where, oh, maybe other people have other opinions. It's no, whatever you're going to say, we're going to follow. And she did that for long enough, and to the point where now she is God. And she walks into a room and she sees what she sees, and her idealistic framework of thinking, which has never matured because of lack of being tested in her profession. Well, she became what she became, which is this person that jumps to conclusions without any semblance of the scientific method that may have saved these people from the ordeal that they were put into. Then, of course, there's the Kowalski's claim. But Smith's claims, so they fell apart when they questioned her about the Kushner stuff. Her claims fell apart from Kushner's lawyers, who forced her to go back and probably read the charts. There was a linear bruise. It was determined to be a rash that Elena had shown to Williams' pediatrician in a recent visit that was likely caused by the straps of his car seat. According to the pediatrician's testimony, the pediatrician also stated that the rash was so small they wouldn't have noticed it had Elena not pointed it out. You know what she sounds like? One of these parents when they come back with scratches. Oh my God. My son came back home with bruises on his knees. I have no idea where he got those from. That's obviously abuse. I had one of those cases this month, as opposed to was playing in the backyard in the dirt and stuff.
I had one.
We get those cases all the time, right? So the attorneys in the Kushner case, they also asked the injuries suffered from his birth trauma could explain his current injuries, and Smith responded by saying she had only partially examined his birth records. Only partially examined his birth records. Wow. Yeah. You know what that's like? That's like when you're in trial and you forgot to do a background check on your on your client who's going to be the star witness in your case. Come to find out, opposing counsel just pulled up. Hey, so did you guys know that she had a federal charge for perjury like a year and a half ago for the very exact same time? It's exactly like that, an incomplete analysis. So she's basically admitting to professional malpractice. How else could you take that if you're not going to read the charts? California radiologist Dr. Susan Gutnick argued that Williams' hemorrhages were rebleeds from birth trauma, not from shaking, according to USA Today. Gutnick argues that Williams' rib fractures weren't 2 to 3 weeks old, but were closer to 6 weeks old around the time of his birth. The judge sided with the Kushner's attorneys, citing the state's inconsistency of testimony and failure to look into the circumstances of Williams' birth. All right, so isolated incident, right? Well, no, because there's the Kowalski case, obviously. And
Okay.
Smith accused her of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which, if you were unaware, it's a rare disorder in which a parent fakes a child's illness for sympathy or gain. Her family members are now suing Smith, and that's already been resolved. They settled $1.2 million from the Smiths to the Kowalski family. There was a guy named John Stewart, not the famous one. He was a Marine Corps veteran. He spent 300 days in jail on Smith's allegation that he killed his girlfriend's son by throwing him repeatedly against a soft surface. Prosecutors dropped the charges after a neuropathologist contradicted Smith's findings. There was another case regarding a lady named Tara Brown. She underwent 3 grueling rounds of in vitro fertilization to conceive twins with her physician husband. She was accused of inflicting countless fractures on her 6-week-old infant, but the charges were expunged after another doctor diagnosed from a rare bone disorder. So in all of these cases, it just seems to be a case of incomplete research on Smith's part. Mm-hmm. Yet she's allowed to be the sole authority on whether or not abuse exists. Now, you could say that, well, I mean, happy ending because they all won their cases against her. Well, not everybody. How many cases did she diagnose as child abuse where they didn't have the wherewithal to hire counsel that was going to stem the tide against Shelley Smith's words in those courtrooms? And how much damage has she done because she refuses to read the charts, because she refuses to consult with other attorneys? Which brings up, I guess, the broader point of this whole thing. How do you even fix something like that? How do you fix something that appears to be so broken? Like, what would be your suggestions? How do I do it? What do you think?
I mean, I would say definitely have like a third party kind of not supervision, but like audit or consultation or something like that, so that there's not only her opinion and her position as being the only one that is being taken care of. And I mean, of course, I would just fire her, but I mean, that doesn't fix everything, because there's a lot of people like her out there, and I know, and it's not gonna definitely fix it all. There's also the people around her that also support her. So it just needs training, some third party, and if they don't follow, then just fire them. I mean, I would just fire her based on her record, but that's just me.
Why don't let's talk about dependency. Let's talk about dependency court, because I think well, first of all, let's wrap up what happened with the lawsuits. Here's what's going on with the lawsuits. The Kowalski family, they won. They secured a settlement of $2.5 million in December of 2021. I don't even think that the documentary had mentioned anything about that, but it was a lawsuit against Dr. Smith and the Suncoast Center, and they ended up settling. Dr. Smith kicked in 1.25. Suncoast Center kicked in another 1.25. That case was over. But the pending trial that they were talking about in the documentary, where they were being so dramatic about, the kids are being a bit much. I mean, I sympathize, but it was like, when they were going through that whole continuance hearing, and the judge was like, so the appellate court ruled that we don't have a decision on punitive damages, so how are we going to go forward? And it's like, okay, so we don't know how we're going to award damages. They got a ruling from up top, so of course the thing was going to get continued. And then the children were just, I mean, the dad was cool about it, but the children were just so devastated by it. I don't want to stay over the top. I don't want to say that but I don't know. I feel like the cameras being there might have played a part in all of that, just the whole tenor of that documentary at the end. So at any rate, that trial is scheduled for September of 2023, and I'm sure they're probably going to end up settling that case. They don't have a good recourse against the merits of those charges, so we'll see what happens with that. So the broader questions, systemic issues with the healthcare, with the child welfare system. Let's just talk about dependency court for a minute. I have I don't have a good relationship with CPS, specifically because of the cases that I work on. Now, here's what I'll say. You have the ground frontline soldiers with CPS. Those are the social workers. Those are the ones that go and do the investigations. For the most part, they're pretty good at discerning bullshit when they see it. And for the most part, obviously they're not perfect, but they're not the ones that you ever confront in the courtroom. They get to testify and things like that on occasion at trials. But they go in and they investigate the claims. Now, the social workers in the documentary, it was one of these things. So upon Dr. Smith's recommendation, they make this finding against Maya's mom, Beata, that she is Munchausen by proxy, or whatever she said. And as a precautionary measure, they instituted these protectionary, keep mom away, keep the parents away, and see what's really going on. But I noted that the entire process from those findings to the time that it got resolved and everything was dropped against the Kowalskis took 3 months. 3 months.
Okay.
Which is a relatively short period of time if I'm relating it to California dependency cases. So 3 months. We investigated it. There's nothing here. We're dropping the case. But in that time, obviously, that's what they base the whole documentary on.
Okay.
You have your social workers. They're the ones that investigate. Upon the judge's orders, those initial orders, which are pretty much ex parte, meaning that there's no arguments presented. This is what we think is what's going on, and it's based on the recommendation of doctors and even the judge in that hearing. And I noted that now the Kowalski's attorneys were doing a really good job advocating for their clients, and she was screaming at the judge saying that these are decisions that need to be decided by the parents and their doctors. It does not belong in this courtroom. And she was going off. She's making really good argument. And the judge said, hey, tone it down, counselor. I mean, but very respectfully, respectful of her argument. And you could tell that his hands were tied. He said they're trying to make medical arguments. And he basically said, I have one doctor telling me one thing. I have another doctor telling me another, essentially telling everybody that I can't make the call here without having an evidentiary hearing or a trial. And that's going to take some time. That's what you and I had talked about at the very beginning of the show, at the jurisdictional hearing. So then there was this last request. And granted, this was not this in the timeline of that 3 month period. It was probably a month or two after the initial orders were made, those emergency orders, right?
Yes.
But then there's the big request from mom. She just wants to go and give her daughter a hug. And the judge basically says, I'm afraid not. And he wasn't trying to be mean about it. It's just like the logistics of me making that order, and the scope of everything that's going on. I don't think it's necessary. And he's probably thinking, we're going to have this all sorted out within a month, within a couple of weeks, maybe. Just let's hope it's not necessary right now. I understand he's trying to be empathetic. His tone was very empathetic, but mom freaked out and she passed out there in the courtroom. And, what happens next is, the big, I guess the point of the documentary, she ends up hanging herself in the garage and she's found there. And they make it seem like Dr. Shelley Smith was to blame, which she was. She certainly had a lot of blame. But I could also say that her reaction to everything that happened was not the normal reaction that you would typically see from a parent in that situation. She had some issues dealing with trauma, with anxiety, with depression. She probably could have used a good therapist that might have prescribed some kind of medication that would have calmed her down a little bit because she was dealing with extreme something. But the actions that she took, they asked a question: what if the judge just granted a request? Would it have been different? Oh, maybe, probably. But she was at her wit's end as it was. And so I'm just going to say that as much as I sympathize with the mom, dad was going through the same thing, and he's trying his best to try to hold it all together. Even through, that guy's been through a lot. His wife commits suicide. His daughter is stricken with this debilitating illness. His children are or have just lost their mom, and he just had CPS accuse him of child abuse throughout the entire thing, throughout the most egregious of circumstances. He kept it together pretty well, but him and his wife were not the same, and she did not have his ability to reset. She had one speed and one speed only, and it ultimately led to her demise. But does that absolve the dependency court of how things were handled? No, because they've chosen a system where they have empowered a doctor like Shelley Smith, who is, do we even know that she's a good doctor? Like, what are her credentials? Because you have people out there that are on the front lines that seem to know a hell of a lot more than we were talking about regarding her condition and the interaction between what she was on and her medications than that Smith character did. But yet this is the one that they rely on. And is one doctor good enough? Well, for most cases, I guess. But should it be in the instance of an extremely rare condition with no general consensus? Probably not. So we talked about the frontline soldiers. They're just basically reporting what they find. But then you get the attorneys for the social workers for CPS, whom I hate the most. Because they sit in that dependency courtroom every day, and you know how it is when you walk in, at least in California anyway. You walked into the San Bernardino, to the one up in LA where they have next to Cal State, whatever it was, the Edmonds Children's Center or something like that. You walk in, and they sit there all day. They do all their cases all day in front of the same judge, in front of the same people. They act like they own the place. And if you're an outside attorney because you have a career outside of dependency law, you're an outsider, and so you're treated as an outsider. They have their own special procedures, and they're really upset with you if you don't know, oh, I was supposed to put my name on this whiteboard? It's not even my whiteboard. Why would I just assume I could do that? And so they get mad at you for not knowing their localized rules, and they treat you and talk to you as if you're bothering them. They don't hear any of your arguments. They've already decided long in advance what they're going to do with this case. They've written it down. This is what we're going to do. This is the recommendation. Are we going to go against the recommendation because we have no evidence? No. And so you're not going to get anything done with them whatsoever. Your best hope is to maybe rely on the children's attorney, but they're not much use either, you know? Yeah. So you have this disinterested, gosh, I remember one CPS case that I worked on a couple years back. We walked in there, and it's like the CPS worker was Darth Vader. She just always had a scowl on her face, and she just would talk with a smirk like she's trying to be condescending to me, attorney, presenting argument for my client who knows the law just as well as her, if not probably better, because I practice in a multitude of different, and I don't know that. I'm just talking shit. But the point is that she just makes these assumptions, and she was an older lady. She resembled a lot of the main people that were the characters in this documentary. And no, they're not going to listen to you. And if you want anything, you're going to have to argue it in front of the judge, and that takes time to put together. You're not going to make arguments, and the judge is just going to get rid of all these recommendations. The recommendations are already to separate child and mom. And then unless they're willing to do this reunification plan. So let's talk about that. There's this one instance in the documentary where Beata, Maya's mom, is talking with I guess a parent advocate. And they're basically telling her to just do what they say. There's no sense in fighting it. And they even told her, you can fight it and be separated for a long time, or not fight it and do what they say and be separated for a short time, which is exactly how they play it out, because the entire separation lasted for literally 3 months, and then it was done. But the reunification process, it's basically take these parenting classes, take an anger management class. We're allowed to drug test you every other week or so, and at random, sometimes more, sometimes less. And you can only see your children for specified periods of time. And then you have to admit that what you did was wrong, and you have to acknowledge that what you did was wrong, and, you know, all of this stuff. You have to admit guilt to the allegations, which is one thing. And that's how you get on the reunification plan, which puts you on the path towards being reunified with your child. That's the system. That's apparently the same system they have in Florida. That's the system that we have in California. And is it messed up? Yeah, it really is. And in the instance that there's a false allegation against you or your spouse and you happen to be married, if you admit the allegation, well, then it's like, well, if you're admitting these allegations, then we're not giving you your kids back unless you divorce your wife or you divorce your husband. And they'll tell you with a straight face, no, there's no therapy, there's no anything, there's no, I promise I won't do it again. You've admitted to the allegation, so it's not safe to return the child, knowing that now we have to assume that those allegations are true. And the allegations could be like a corporal punishment. You beat the child with whatever because they saw a bruise or a scratch. And there's differing opinions. Well, if you've admitted that, well, we can't send the child home now because now you've just admitted to corporal punishment, physical abuse, and violation of whatever. And so you want your son back? You want your daughter back? Divorce your partner. And then the judge will say, and then you'll even make the argument. I've seen people in pro per make the argument. They're literally telling me I have to choose between my children or my wife. And then the judge will be like, yep, that's pretty much. That's how that works. So what's it going to be? They will put you on the spot like that. Is it an evil system? Yeah. Is it effective? If there's genuine cases of abuse? Yeah. I'd imagine it was designed to protect children from actual genuine child abusers. The problem becomes when you get in this gray area, these ambiguities, where you have people that don't know what the F they're talking about, making definitive decisions about medical stuff when there's multiple opinions and we're just picking one at random and then putting these people through all of this stuff. Now, I just told you that, right? And if you're my client, you're going to hear that story from me in my office, not on this show, but I'm going to tell you exactly like that. And so now I'm going to say that you can fight if you want to, and I'll fight as hard as you want me to. Or we'll just say we admit the allegations and we want to go with the reunification plan. I'll have my kid back in 6 months. And they'll ask me, what's the risk? Well, the risks are that you're found guilty anyway, and that because you didn't take these charges seriously, they don't offer you reunification, which I admit is not commonly what happens. But there is a reality to that. If you're found guilty of the allegations, then, well, you have to tell them that they have the option to give you reunification or not. And just that very threat of potentially losing your children forever is not enough to gamble. And people will just say, oh, well, screw it. I'll just take the plan then. That's what I'm going to get anyway. Because you don't get a jury trial, and it's literally by a preponderance of the evidence by which they have to, they're going to decide, which is a very low measure. It just means that it's more likely than not that you are guilty of the allegations that they're saying. So it sucks, and it's a shitty system, but it's the one that we have. And is it broken? Yes. How do we fix it? I don't know. But if we're starting from the medical perspective, I'd imagine one way is to not have one staff member solely dedicated to child abuse cases, because they're going to become jaded and they're going to lose their objectivity, and they're going to forget that, oh yeah, I used to be a practicing doctor, and there's this whole medical world about all these multiple possibilities of what it could be. And if, sometimes when you get older, you just don't have the energy to do all that research. And so you say, oh yeah, obviously child abuse, without not even so much as looking at the initial charts about what happened at the childbirth. And this is the person that we're relying on. It's an easy fix for that. Just find a panel. Just get a panel. A panel of, if you're going to dedicate somebody, then make it a panel of like 5 to 7 to 12 to 20 doctors, or rotate them in and out. But don't just stick them in this one position where they're going to become jaded and calloused over the course of many years of probably seeing these heartbreaking cases one after another, and calling it, all right, well, we got something in place at least. From a judge's perspective, you remember we were talking about this one judge, I went in chambers with him, and he works on these dependency cases.
Okay.
And he told me from his perspective, his biggest fear is that, you give the children back to the parents and then something happens to the kid and you find out about it later. That's always his biggest fear, and what he guards the most against, which is fair, because imagine that you give the parents the benefit of the doubt. That one time that you give the parents the benefit of the doubt. And then they go back home, and that's the case of Gabriel Hernandez.
Yes. I've heard that there has been some judges that have retired and have not been able to continue practicing because they learn that they made a decision and something happened to the children later when the decision was to return the children to, I don't know, I guess the abuser who ended up doing all of the damage. And it's very sad. It's hard. The position of the judge to like make that decision based on the few information that they have in front of them, at least in dependency court. It is hard. It is a lot to put on just one person, and then just using. I don't think they give the judge enough, in most cases, enough information for them to feel like, okay, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. Feels right, and this is no doubt the best option. A lot of them, they're just like, ugh, let's just wing it, and this is, I don't know, 51% better than the other.
It's like I don't envy being a judge. I wouldn't want to be a judge in a dependency case. As attorneys, we get the option of turning down cases. I had one case where some couple was desperate because they just lost their kids, and then I asked them what was the medical findings, and there's multiple skull fractures, and the kid had ingested marijuana somehow.
Okay.
And they were saying it was because he fell off the bed. And then I remember telling my assistant, you know how many times my kids have fallen off the bed? And how many times they've ended up with, it's not that high for one. And I mean, I don't know if it was a bunk bed or not, but ingesting marijuana, you either fed it to them or they ate it off of the floor, or they got into it somehow. That's just too many red flags to me. I just wish that family, you know what, good luck to you. You got an uphill battle, and you're probably not getting your kids back anytime soon, is exactly what I told them. But I'm not taking your case. Number one, because I thought that they were probably guilty. And so if somebody could represent them, it shouldn't be me. If I'm already thinking that off the bat, they deserve somebody that believes their story, I guess. But no, I refuse to take that case. But judges don't get that. They have to decide these cases. And I couldn't even imagine. I send a child back to their parents who promised up and down that it wasn't abuse and it was certain or whatever, and they've learned their lesson and they jumped through all these hoops and they got their kids back. And then it's this huge emotional, happy scene in the courtroom, and the children are finally given back to the children's arms, and everybody claps. You know how they do, stand up and clap in dependency court. They do that. And then they come to find out 2 weeks later, the children's died because of brutal assault by the mother, because she couldn't handle it. She had major depressive disorder, and she was on substance abuse again. And because nobody was checking up on her, she just lost it and decapitated her child, which is an actual case, by the way.
Oh God!
Imagine the your feeling is going to be that blood is on your hands.
And in those cases, they usually, in the news, they always mention, this judge made this order, like they describe the person by name.
And they're vilified.
And it's like, come on. I mean, I've seen some cases where it's like, okay, the judge really made a bad decision. Like all the information was there, and they just didn't care. But there's a lot of them that at that moment, with the information that they had in front of them, they did make the best decision. It's just that they can't really, what is it call? They can't really see the future. And in some cases, these parents behave like they're angels in court and during the process. And you think they have been rehabilitated, and you're like, okay, there's hope. They did everything that we order them to, but in reality, they're just really bad people that have other plans. And as soon as they get the children back, it's like back to their bad behavior and abuse. And
as soon as they're out of the watchful eyes of the court, everything goes back to normal, the way it was going to be anyway. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is as an attorney. I'm just going to say, from an attorney's perspective, I hate dependency cases because it's hard for me to believe the parents sometimes, because I'm a parent, and sometimes the things that they say to me doesn't add up. Now, if it's these medical cases, those, I mean, I could just follow the breadcrumbs to all the medical documents. You have a rare illness. It's been diagnosed. There's multiple differing opinions. I mean, I would have more sympathy for a case like that. But in the case of like multiple skull fractures and ingestion of marijuana, and no, man, I'm not taking your case. In what world do you keep marijuana around your, or much worse, fentanyl or something like that? I've seen those cases as well, and they're out there, and people are. It's rough for children. It's really rough out there for children. There's some crazy parents out there.
Oh yes, it is. It is, and like just like you have had to refuse or reject some cases because their parents' position is just not right, and they don't get it. They don't understand, and I mean, I'm not gonna be able to defend somebody like that. Like for example, I remember doing a consultation for this woman that opposing party was being charged, or he was being investigated for sexual abuse, and they were telling her, you need to either move out of the home or he needs to move out, and the children cannot be in contact with him. It wasn't even the father, it was like a step parent or something like that. And from everything that she told me that the child was doing, and this goes back to our last episode, the child was doing a lot of sexual things. Oh. And she was very little, maybe like 4 years old, and it was obvious that she has seen or been exposed to something, and the child was always with her or the stepfather. And I was like, no, like I think there's something going on. And she felt that it was necessary to stay with this person just because this person was the only one that had supported her with the child. Like the biological father didn't do his part, and she had like really, I guess, strong feelings for this person. But I told her in consultation, if they're telling you that, and based on what you're telling me that the child is doing, you either have to prove that she's getting those behaviors from somewhere else, or you're going to have to follow the orders. But I can't really represent you just to try to keep you guys together as a family.
Yeah. I've had that exact same conversation with another client of mine, where it's like she was married to a creep. They weren't even married. They were just like a boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. Maybe they were engaged. I don't know. But he was sexually abusing the daughters, and he had physically beaten up the eldest child. And they initially came to me to represent him for his criminal case. And then in talking to them, I found out there was a dependency case. And then I kind of pulled her aside and was like, if you want to get your children back, you're going to have to get rid of this fucking guy.
Uh-huh.
And then she's like, oh, I know. And I because I got a hold of the report, the dependency report, and what they were saying. I was asking her questions. She was confirming or denying certain things. And then I said, listen to me. He's probably going to jail for a long time because there was a pending. I don't even know what happened in the criminal case, but I said, he's probably going to jail. But if you try to stay with this guy, you're never going to get your children back. Ever, 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 ever. And it was a struggle. And even when I told her that, she's like, okay. And she's like, I'll do whatever you say. You know, I will listen to my attorney. All right. Well, come to find out, we're 6 months into the reunification plan. And CPS, not even CPS, she got arrested with her boyfriend, with that guy. And then CPS didn't know anything about it yet, but they were together. And there's some restaurant, he caused a scene, or I don't know, threw a tantrum, and then the police arrested him, and then she was in the police report. And I just, are you effing kidding me right now? Are you serious? Are you serious? And I had this whole conversation like, look, you pay me a lot of money to give you legal advice, and you're trying to get your kids back, but you don't even respect yourself enough to. I lectured her like I was her dad, and I was like, you have the audacity. Look, you know what? You don't need me. I will drop you as a client if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do right now. And if I hear about this one more time, I swear to God, I will withdraw. And she was all teary-eyed about it, and eventually, I hope she learned her lesson. But I mean, she ended up getting her kids back, and she moved on, and she moved to a different city, house. I assume that she ended up getting a new boyfriend. Maybe she did. I don't know. doesn't matter, but she got her kids back. But yeah, that's the frustration. Those are the kinds of cases that we deal with. And so when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, I could see how you could be calloused and just unavailable for somebody that genuinely was not guilty of something and had cogent remarks to make about it. So, which is why I say you can't stay in dependency court your whole career. You just can't. And a lot of the CPS attorneys, they live there. They've been there for years. They're tired. They look miserable. And it's like this whole, the Stanford Project over there. Like they walk in, they act like they're the judge. I kid you not. The last time that I was in the Edmonds courtroom, the CPS was scolding the judge because the judge got something wrong, and the judge was like, "Oh yes, I apologize. I don't know what got into me." It's like, are you kidding me? What kind of Mickey Mouse courtroom is this? Where am I right now? I was appalled. I was appalled by the whole thing. I didn't even get into all the questions that I had sent you, Ileana, and it doesn't matter. I think we answered a lot of them in the context of stuff, but we've been going for like an hour, 20 minutes. I think it's time to wrap up. This was the curious case of Maya Kowalski, who lost her mother to suicide after curious findings by CPS based on the wayward diagnosis by one Dr. Shelley Smith. It was Shelley, right? Shelley something. Shelley Smith.
Something, yeah.
But yeah, it was a crazy documentary. I had to cover it when it was on. I was like, oh, this is an easy one. We're definitely doing this show. So in the coming weeks, if everyone out there who's still with us, if you're still with us, if you've listened to the whole show, thank you for listening. But I'm going to talk about the show a little bit. Okay. I've made some observations. So I did a video on Father's Day, just a small short one about how to win your case for the holidays, how to stay cool, how to not freak out, encourage the other parents to see the other, I did one of our old school videos, where we're actually giving helpful advice, helpful tips to win your family law case. Nobody gave a shit. So I think we're going to just have to settle for talking about these true crime stories, these documentaries, these interesting cases that people want to talk about, which I don't mind doing that. We got 1,400 subscribers. People are following us for a reason, and the channel's only going to get better, bigger, all those things. For if you guys don't see Ileana in the coming weeks, well, she's got a significant. You want to tell everyone what's going on, Ileana, or do you want to not?
I'm heavily pregnant.
Yeah, she's very heavily pregnant. She could pop at any moment, to the point where she wanted to do it remote. I said, that's probably best, because I don't want you bursting on the couch right there and having a whole medical incident. But no, Ileana's been dealing with this pregnancy. This is why she's been in and out on the show for months. So she's going through this whole thing, and we're wishing her the best. But if she's not on the show for a period of weeks, just know she's got her hands full, and she'll be back when she's ready.
I'll be back with a paralegal helping me out. Or screaming.
Oh, I'm hiring a new paralegal. I'm going through that whole process right now. And I got to make certain decisions going forward. But I'll tell you a funny story to end the show. So this past Wednesday was my mom's birthday, and we were all in the backyard. My mom has a swimming pool back there, and my 4-year-old and my 3-year-old decided, when nobody else was in the pool, they just got out of the pool and they had gotten fully dressed and they have all their clothes on, and they decided to jump back into the jacuzzi. And I was sitting on the chair, and I got up to make sure they didn't drown or something. But they were already in. It was like, well, they jumped into the little first step of the jacuzzi, and then they're just kind of walking around, and I'm thinking in my head, my kid's totally going to jump in right now. She's going to jump into the middle. I'm going to be so mad if I have to jump in fully clothed. And sure enough, not 30 seconds later, my daughter lunges into the front, and she's waving her arms for like a couple of seconds. And I'm thinking, as I'm jumping into the water, God damn it. So, I mean, it wasn't deep or anything. I was like maybe knee deep, and then I pulled her out of there. And as I'm pulling her out of the water, she's like, Daddy, you saved me. It's like, oh, yes, I did. Then I pulled the other one out. It's like, no more pull for us today. Well, if you were wondering what happens to you when you have, here's what's going to happen to you. You're going to be faced with these situations. It's going to be your kid. And this funny thing that happens when you're a parent, you know what's going to happen, but it's like your brain acknowledges that what you're about to do sucks, but your brain goes on like autopilot and just lunges you into the pool after your child. There's no thinking. There's not even a consideration. It's just like, oh, well, this is what's happening right now. There's nothing I could do about it. I could not have resisted that urge if I wanted to. My wife is like, you could have just like reached her hand and grabbed her. Like, maybe I could have, but I didn't want to take the chance. I don't know. I saw her go in. I jumped in. So
that's funny.
That is my that is my funny story for to end the show on. And you could look forward to many more moments. Your kids are going to grow up and they're going to be on the playground. And you're going to be like helicopter parent watching over them because you don't want them to trip and fall on the monkey bars or something. But that'll go away. I'm just going to say, you got your work cut out for you. But congratulations on all of that. It's a positive thing. Just know there's challenges and you're going to have to get used to it, and you will. No doubt about that. But for all of our loyal followers who are wondering, that's what's going on with Ileana, and that's what's coming up on the horizon. I'm going to have to bring in some special guest hosts.
Yes.
I'll bring in my brother again. My brother's really good on the show, except the last time I put him on the show, I had the camera angled for you, and then he was sitting there, and it cut off his hairline, and it looked like he didn't have any hair. And I was like just making fun of his hairline on the previous week. So I don't know if he thought I did it on purpose or not. My wife thought I did. But it was... Maybe we'll have him back on. But that's all we can have for you guys this week. And thank you guys for listening. Make sure to lock your doors. Keep your loved ones close. We're going to see you guys all next week. And we love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that's off. Let me just make sure that this is completely off.
Today.
There it is.
Zoom or...
Oh, my wife said congratulations. She said, congratulations, Ileana. And then my mom said, there's a recent... Oh, I missed my mom. All right. Well, I've acknowledged them, so they're not going to be upset with me. Okay. And... yeah, ending the stream. Yes, we're done. We're done. End it. Good.